Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of AngularAir. I'm your host, Justin, and on today's episode, we are going to be taking a look at a new library by one of our previous guests that's been on a couple times. Always creating new stuff, so we're super excited to check out this one. A little bit of state management things, so I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions, and we're going to learn a lot of stuff. So let's dive right into it. We'll say hi to our panelists, and we'll meet our guests, returning guest, and we'll get into the content. Joining us today, we've got Mike with us. Mike, what's going on?
Not too much. Been here waiting for the show to start, just hanging out. I'm just kidding. I just got here.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm ready for today's show.
I was
Waiting
like,
for
what?
a show to stop. Came in last minute, but you made it. We're excited, as always.
I was here before go live.
That's
I'm on time.
That's all you need to be. That's all you need to be, right? As long as the makeup's done, hair's done, you're good to go.
Makeup.
Launch. Yeah. You know,
I come perfect out of the box.
Yeah.
All right. Jealous.
Broccoli is one of one right there.
Right. Our guest, Zach, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, everyone? Yeah, so I'm Zach, like Justin mentioned, third time on the show this time. So always really fun to be able to do AngularAir with y'all. So I'm an Angular GDE right now, and I'm a senior engineer, and as of kind of recently, engineering manager at Narwhal as well. So yeah, you're talking to a manager now, Brocco. Careful.
I don't see any tasks for me in the sprint, so I'm good.
Yeah, that's good.
Right. What new features do we need to bring in the mid sprint? Right. What do we need to change this week?
I don't know. I don't do that sprint stuff.
You don't do that sprint
if I can
stuff.
help it, right?
Nice.
But yeah, excited about the new year. Is this y'all's first show of 2022?
It is.
Awesome.
It is our first 2022 show. So
cool.
You're kicking it off.
Yeah. So one of my littler side projects before we get into the state management library I wanted to look at is just like a little kind of habit tracker that I made in the spirit of New Year's. Justin, do you want to share your screen so we could see it that way?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna pull the manager card, see if Brock can share it. Because my browser, I haven't set up the security to allow me to share it through the stream yet.
Yeah,
so it's in the private chat.
Yeah, put it in private chat. I'll grab it from there and open up a tab.
Well, while he's doing that, have either of you ever read the book Atomic Habits?
I have not.
Okay. Really good book. Would definitely recommend it. But there's this idea in there called the aggregation of marginal gains, which is kind of this idea that if you can make a 1% improvement to your life every day for a year, and every day that 1% compounds, you can get your life to, I think it's something like 3,700% higher than where you started. So that is kind of the idea for the app, the little app that I have on screen here. And this is very bare bones. This is like after two nights of working at stuff, but I got the OAuth in there, so you can log in if you want. It's not going to do anything for you, but that'll let it be so I'm the only one that can like change data for it for now. But if you scroll down a little bit, Brock, you can see I've got like my checklist that I have for myself every day. And the way it will work, if I get through the day and I don't accomplish any of these, I go down 1%. But if I accomplish all 10 of them, I go up 1 whole percent. And that's based on your starting point for the day. So I'm going to count this.
Is our partials or percentage?
Yeah.
Up or down?
Yeah. So if I get 5, then it's like you break even. And then it's like +2, +0.02, whatever, however it breaks down. So I'm gonna this counts, I think, as my time spent on a side project for today, being on AngularAir. So I'm gonna check that off over here in my browser. And
wait, what if we don't get through the stream? Don't you have to like wait to the end of the stream, or were you just predicting?
It's already. I've already
Abort
spent like 10
stream.
minutes here.
Abort stream.
That's enough time. That's enough
5
time.
minutes, we're good. Check mark.
Yeah. So the aside from the gym, I spend like a couple hours at the gym every day. But aside from that, I try to make a lot of these things that I could do at potentially at any time of the day, and wouldn't take me that long. It was like kind of part of the idea built into it. But you'll see. Well, it's kind of hard to see on Brocky's because it's disabled. But I'm clicking on my side, and he's getting the live updates for.
Can I
for
say
that.
something real quick, Zach?
Yeah, man.
I'm just really thankful that this is a virtual meeting because I see you have yet to brush your teeth, my friend.
I know. I haven't checked that one off. Not yet. I haven't eaten anything yet today, though. So don't have need to yet. So that one usually gets crossed off after dinner.
Nice.
But
I'm
but
glad
yeah,
you're taking care of yourself.
appreciate it, man. But yeah, you can see as I'm clicking on my browser here. Brocky's on a whole different computer. I'm unchecking everything. You can see the graph kind of updating in real time as we go. So yeah, it's kind of fun. I'm wanting to take this and make it so that, you know, when someone else logs in, they can go ahead and make their own list for themselves. And you can just start yourself whenever you want at day 0 and start tracking your own marginal gains as you go across. So
Sweet.
yeah.
Is this going to be a PWA?
I don't know. Like it works on browser, you know, it's all right. The web should be standalone. That's a whole other topic, I think. But yeah.
I just want to make sure I can, you know, pin it on my phone and be able to use it for my phone.
Yeah, well, you can do you can do like the bookmarks on your homepage, right? I don't know. maybe I'll look into the PWI. I've actually never done one, so I don't know how much it would take. But yeah, maybe if y'all have done it before, maybe you could give me some pointers just to know.
I've done it, and I've already helped you.
What?
There's an ng add schematic.
Oh,
I believe
nice.
it's at Angular/PWA. If
perfect.
that's what it still is. This was years ago that I created it, but
I'm like racking my brain for when you helped me with this. But I get what you're saying. You're saying you made the package, so that's how you helped. Yeah.
So being that I'm not logged in, is there a means for you to be able to add and manage the list of what's there, or I may have missed that?
Not yet. This is like 2 nights of hacking at this. So the login is just there. Like I'm the only one that can edit right now. But I want to make it so everyone can have their own list, and everyone can, you know, they can control their own list. They can control whether their list is public or not, and then it would be cool to like do a leaderboard too, I think. So, yeah, there's some fun stuff there. So
Nice.
That is
awesome.
Nice.
Very cool. But yeah, so that's kind of like my way. I'm hoping I can make 2022 really great. Just setting those little habits and hoping to get some big gains from them.
We are off to a great start because we are getting to chat today. So
I know.
Good kickoff for 2022.
Very cool. Very cool. So yeah, the big project I wanted to talk about is the new state management library I've been working on. So it's called Drxjs. That is, so it's kind of a double meaning. And part of it is like a play on my name a little bit, like Zack DeRose, Zack DRxjs. They're kind of close, I guess. So started out as an inside joke at like one of the NG comps, but yeah, I liked it. But the other idea of Drxjs is the other meaning is to try to leverage RxJS in a way that you get all the advantages out of it, while avoiding a lot of the pitfalls, including like writing a lot of RxJS. So
now you keep saying RxJS. Are you meaning RxJS or are you meaning NGRX?
I mean RxJS. Yeah.
Okay. I haven't seen the project yet, so I'm excited to see. And I just wanted to make clear because we were talking about state management, which is more associated with NGRX than RxJS.
Yeah. So this is a state management library built on top of RxJS. But another one of the goals, it's not built into the name so much, but one of the goals, Brocky, is I want to make this domain agnostic, to the point where you could take your Angular code that you wrote, take the state management code out of that, and then drop it into vanilla.js, React, any kind of projects you want, and leverage things that way. So, yeah. What thoughts on that?
I love the ambition of that. I know that RxJS is framework agnostic, so something built directly on top of that would also support those same characteristics, unless you tied it down. So,
yeah,
it sounds very interesting.
Yeah. Well, cool. I'm glad
and so
it does.
It's like taking the Redux pattern, right? And then doing that applying that and then providing the framework that helps support doing that, right?
Sort of. So that's actually one of my packages, Justin. And let me maybe start at the beginning. Do you mind if you throw my screen up in the middle?
So is this package, is this suite and this side project, is this more than 2 days worth of work at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
This one's more than 2. This is a little bit more, but yeah, we'll see how far we get.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go for it.
We've talked before in the past, not just on the show, but we've also chatted. And I know you're a huge fan of NGRX. At least you were. I don't want to make any assumptions. We're in a new year now. But what led to the idea of creating a state management library?
So the big thing was, Brocky, actually working through the migrations that we've been involved in, or I've been involved in. You know, we were kind of in one together as well. But the idea is that been involved in a couple AngularJS to Angular, Angular 2 or Angular proper, I guess, migrations now. And what seems to happen is you get this code, and it's perfectly fine code, but because you want to migrate to get to the newest tooling, to get to the latest framework, you end up either having to throw it out or like refactor it or just do something to it. And you these migrations end up taking, sometimes on the scale of years, which is just untenable, I think, as software engineers. It doesn't make sense when we could have structured our code in a way where, like, the core of it, and I think state management often lies at the core of most of our apps. Like, the core of it should have been fine to use in any kind of front end framework you could have decided to use. So that's one of the big motivations for it, was to say, okay, whatever comes next, let's be prepared. So when it's time, when we decide we want to move frameworks, or we decide we want to go to the new thing, it's not a year-long process to do that. So yeah, I see Hans in the chat saying, like, RxJS by itself is domain agnostic, and yeah, like that's exactly the point. RxJS is like this great domain agnostic tool. So this is kind of trying to take that and putting like an interface on top of it to help us in terms of what we can do with like kind of leveraging the good stuff about it for our front end work, while sidestepping the bad parts, and also like just making things easier and faster as developers. So that's kind of the goal of this package. So
when you talk about also being prepared for what comes in the future, I think some of the things that are here now, right, are things like micro front ends, or using different frameworks and maybe widgetizing, right, what we build, maybe like Angular elements and then something else, other frameworks that are all on one page, and maybe you need to synchronize your state across all of those. So I think those are examples as well of moments that we're in currently, where you could benefit from your state management being domain agnostic. Yeah,
absolutely. I think there's going to be a lot of power in this going forward. And I think the power of it is that, I like you were saying, Rocky, I love NGRX. It's great. It's a great tool. And then there's a lot of like the experience you get as a developer working with the Redux dev tools with that. It makes working without it like feel like a order of magnitude less good. in my opinion. So
So
yeah.
with that, and when talking about RxJS as a dependency, are there any other dependencies at this point?
No, just RxJS. I believe that's the only dependency. I'd have to confirm, but let's check my package.json file. This, by the way, let me throw it in the private chat. Maybe Justin, you can throw it out there for the rest of the folks. The GitHub repo. Boom. And let me check out the package.json. But I believe it's like. Yeah, RxJS. I guess I got Zone.js in there. I think that's just for my example apps, though. I think for the packages proper, take a look at them. So the view model, and we'll get into this soon, but I believe, yeah, look at that. One dependency, RxJS. Hey, let me make that a little bit bigger. Sorry. I didn't realize how small it's showing up for y'all. But there you go. One dependency, RxJS. Mission accomplished. But
we can also, I've mentioned this before, but Bundlephobia is a site that's pretty cool out there. You can go there and put in a package name, and it'll tell you the dependencies and the size and everything.
This is not time for picks there, Justin.
I'm regurgitating a pick from a long time ago, but I'm saying it's we could without having to dig into the package JSON, we can also utilize that and find it real quick.
That'd be cool. I'll need to check into that. But yeah, let me get to the. Oh, go ahead.
You have three libraries. I guess you're probably going to get into it, but like
yeah,
different libraries to bring in.
I wish I had a better graphic for this, but the goal of the idea of the view model interface or the view model package here. So the view model package itself is actually like almost trivially small. Like it's right here. This is the extent of the package. Like that's and this is the thing at the core of what this is. And it's pretty much.
Sorry, can you zoom in here as well?
Enhance.
Sorry, y'all.
Thank you.
Enhance. There we go. Yeah, this is the I think the entirety. It may have changed a little bit since I wrote the article. I don't remember, but this is the entirety of what the view model package is, and this is the thing kind of at the center of what my OSS is about. And the idea here is you're separating things out. So you're building in a separation between your state logic and your view. And so the idea here is to create a view model type, given a certain input type and a certain view model type, then given those inputs, you can return it's a function that returns a single observable of the view model type. So the way that works, coming up here, the input would probably be like an object composed of multiple observables inside the object, maybe some functions in there, maybe some static variables like to set other parameters for the view model pattern or for config or something like that. But based on whatever those inputs are, it's going to operate as a black box that returns a single observable as output. And the way we would use this, if you're using Angular, the idea would be if this is like a component level view model, then what it would do is what you'd want to do is you'd take this observable, you'd slap an async pipe at the top of your template, and then you just build it out from there as if it were, as if all you got was the view model type object that came out. So I know there's I love NGRX, so there's kind of like a pattern that's not that far from this in NGRX where you make one selector, like a view model selector for a component based on your global state. And it may be based on some local things as well. Like sometimes you can throw in like a forms value changes or a form into there, or maybe some callbacks or maybe some properties. And you from that you can get the same idea, the one observable coming out, put an async pipe on top of that, and then it's kind of like after the async pipe, it's kind of like you're writing a function for HTML based off the one object. And that's like super great. And so that's kind of what got me started down this path and thinking about how I wanted to make that work. Whoops, I lost my place here.
So with that, the scope of one of those, scroll down a quick set, just a few.
Yeah, you want to get.
Yeah, I was gonna. Sorry, the DRxJS view model. The scope of that, is that envisioned to be on a per component basis? Because I'll make sure to use cross framework terminology because I don't want to tie it to just a framework. So is that viewed to be at the component level, at the application level, or either?
So the idea would be, I haven't had a chance to write more about this, but the idea would be that you could recurse on this pattern, right? Like with what I show in the examples, it's very much let's focus on one piece. So let's focus on one, component in quotes, not like a capital C, but like a lowercase c.
Yep.
Like this is how we can, given this one scope, let's figure out how we can take that and turn it into HTML. There's nothing that says though that you can't take that output and make it an input. Like imagine like a tree view of this where you have several of these, and each one of those is its own component, again, little c. And you can kind of see that could be a representation of your application. Maybe something at a root level or a global level. It's kind of like the NGRX store. There's nothing, we could use the same interface, I believe, for that. I don't think the name view model makes sense at that point anymore. But yeah, I think
I was just trying to think that
things could come in. Yeah,
all these frameworks have the concept of application start, right? Hey, get started, initialization, whatever it is, that you could initiate or instantiate this at that point as a singleton pattern and expose it through your entire application if you wanted to keep it there for all of your application as well.
Yeah, so that is one of the things I'd love to get is something like that. Like, not committing to this, but one of the thoughts I have had is having like a store package, kind of like the NGRX store, like similar idea. And that way we could do something just like this, exactly like what you're saying at app start. We have the singleton to hold our global state in there. And you could still do that, with just the interface we have here. It's not as ergonomic as it should be if you really wanted to do that, right? So yeah. Let me see. So I see. So Hans is saying some cool stuff in here. Like I love this comment. RxJS plus TypeScript plus functional programming is a power pack. And yeah, I'm 100% on board with that, man. If you check out the GitHub link that Justin set out here, I do have links to stack blitzes, and there's also example apps inside of the project if you want to clone it down and serve it up. It's an NX workspace, so you can just like check out the executors, and you can figure out how to serve all the different apps in there. But there's like for right now, I have an example of a simple list. And an example of a tic-tac-toe component. And the idea here, let me go back. I'm kind of jumping all over the place here. Sorry, guys. But the idea is the power of this interface, the power of the view model pattern, is once we can create our interface for how we're going to create this, we actually have 5 separate paths that we could take in terms of what do we want to do next. And if it's just me, I kind of got to go through these things linearly. So I got to like pick a path and like do one first and then do the next one and do the next one. But it would be cool if you're working in a team to be able to send one person on one, another person on another, and then as long as the interface doesn't change, theoretically this should all work, and you can create 3 different apps in the time it takes, in a fifth of the time it takes me to make one. So that's pretty cool. Not that you'd want to make 3 different apps for the same thing, but I guess you could. But yeah, like the goal of this, like the test is like one thing, but being able to separate out so you could have separated work between building your view and building your state, or the way your view model should work, is kind of the power of this. It's like just put in a hard like adapter or switch between those. And so it's interesting you mentioned like the Redux pattern, Justin, because I think the Redux pattern is actually really cool, and that's why I have the derxjs reducer package out there. So the way that would work is, if you wanted to implement your view model, if you wanted to, you could go out and do that with just RxJS operators and figure out how to make that work, right? But if you're used to like working with events and reducers and stuff like that, and that's how you'd prefer to work with things, you can leverage my reducer package to kind of take that. And it's not there yet, but I would love to make it like interop with the NGRX like action creators and their reducer functions and their on utility stuff and stuff like that, because the NGRX package is pretty solid. So I'd love to be able to have some interop with that. So like theoretically, you should be able to take like your whole reducer function out of NGRX and just be able to drop it into Drxjs, and then your state management at least becomes framework agnostic that way, or domain agnostic that way. So
nice.
So yeah.
Let me ask a question here. Like thinking in terms of trying to kind of conceptualize like using this view model, right?
Yeah.
And maybe play it next to NGRX, since we're talking about that, right? Mm-hmm. Like in the scenario of NGRX, and I have selectors, and I want to build my view model from selectors. Well, mm-hmm. I'm kind of a little bit locked into my store has to have that data in order for me to bring that into my selector, and right. Then from there, if I want to use, let's say I have a service that has data, right? And I want to aggregate those two together. And then at that point, I'm like building my own observable stream, one from the selector, one from the service, to then build my view model. Right. So I'm kind of taking that thought and bringing that into what you're showing here and saying, this interface kind of seems like it provides the way to do that aggregation for me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because the inputs, it can be, whatever, I'm feeding the sources from whatever, right? It's agnostic to the sources, and then, but I'm still doing that concept of like, how do I patternize, or whatever, how I'm building my view models, right? And this is giving me guidance and a consistency of here's a pattern to solve that.
Absolutely.
Sound like a solution?
Yeah. And you could absolutely use like the goal would eventually get to like Drxjs to be a potential replacement for NGRX, but at the moment I think it's a great companion actually, for exactly the reason you mentioned, because like the way input 1, 2, and 3 goes, as long as they're observables, it doesn't really matter where they're coming from. These could be coming from the NGRX selector, they could be coming from your service, they could be coming from like something internal to your component. Like if you have an event that matters in the scope of your component, but not to the scope of your like global store. Like I think this is a really good way of just like, well, let's just create an observable inside the scope of that component, toss it over into our view model function. So one of the reasons I like this pattern too is there's so components, especially Angular components, I feel like should just be view, and like the stuff associated with that. So what I'll often do is like just make another file for this to create the view model function that will do this. So pretty much what your component ends up looking like at that point is, okay, let's use DI to get other dependencies into this component. Then inside of like then just at the top of the component, like pass those things into the view model function. And then all of your state management can go into a completely different file. Excuse me. And that's kind of like setting that divide I was talking about, where you have your view, and that's just your view concerns at that point is just like this piece of the puzzle down here, and everything else has already been passed over to the create view model function that's putting out a view model, and you're at the start of it, you're just passing in what those observables look like. And that's like some of the really cool pieces of RxJS, I think, is that you can create that at your components initialization and then just let it be. Because like when you pass in an observable, like for folks that like higher order functions, like one of the coolest pieces about it is being able to parameterize like functionality. Like if you're making a function and you're passing a function into it, depending on what function you pass into it, it's going to completely change, the way the resulting function works. And that's like one dimension of power. I think observables come with a second dimension on top of that, where not only are you like parameterizing functionality, you're also like parameterizing all possible futures, right? Because that observable that you're giving it is like an open-ended timeline for what could happen. Like the user could click a bunch of times, or they could not. Who cares? We've got the observable, so we've got the timeline to be able to do that. So yeah.
And then you have that opportunity to compose all of that, and then decide when you want to subscribe or execute it, essentially.
Absolutely.
So I think that's another powerful thing, is that now you can start composing these rules or experiences, right? And then choose when you want to activate them, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's just, I'm continuously floored by how cool like the stuff you can do with RxJS is. I have a talk, I think it's linked here in the article too, just about, I think I call it visualizing the timeline. So the talk I gave at RxJS Live, I think last year. So yeah, I definitely recommend taking a look at that, because I think there's so much power in that, and being able to think about those things and to be able to compose things on top of this is like a next dimension of like being able to write good code, and to be able to write expressive code that does a lot of stuff without having a lot of surface area for like bugs to creep in, versus like the alternative of like just writing imperative spaghetti code. So yeah, I don't know. That's where I get to. Let me hit one of the questions here from Hans again. So did you consider having an RxJS subject hold the state? So this is in the reducer package that I have. I believe I do use subjects. I'm like spacing a little bit on how exactly that's implemented at the moment, but the idea for the reducer package is some of the observable streams do need to be hot. So we do like share it with using a subject to make these things hot, and to be able to, that way if we have new subscribers coming in, it's not creating a new instance or a new observable pattern. But that kind of feeds into like the whole thing I have here on the pros and cons of RxJS. So I've been talking a lot about the pros, but some of the cons, I think, very important not to lose sight of those too. So like the ones I have here is like, it takes a while for you to really understand what's going on. And even if you've gone and made the investment, it's hard to pass that buck off to whoever's coming after you, to expect them to do that too. So those are hard things to do. And this is really getting into to Hans's question, I think, which is like, there's a lot of confusing stuff going on. There's a lot of different dimensions to everything that can happen with RxJS and observables. So like the joining strategies, hot versus cold and like the lukewarm observable, which is like the cold observable sourced by a hot one. That gets weird. It gets weird real quick. And there's a lot of different ways of being lukewarm. So it's odd. And then the behavior versus replay versus like the plane. So this would be like behavior subject, replay subject, subject, and async subject. It's unfortunate. We have to keep all that in our brains if we want to do it right. And that, of course, leads to this being dangerous, which is it's really easy to sneak those codes in or sneak those bugs in to your code. And it's rough. And then to make things worse when you do have a bug, there's the last point, which is if you wanted to debug it, good luck. Because it's not going to, you can, it's just, it's probably not going to happen the way you normally would do it by like opening up your dev tools and inspecting what's going on in the call stack, because there's so many callbacks in there that there's like, you're going to have to wade through 20 different like things going through the, all the different functions that are being popped onto the stack, which is, it's not like it's going to pop the stack. It's not like we're going to have a stack overflow. It's just for a human, it's not going to be tenable to be able to debug what's going on in that. So
this is one of the things that illustrates like the importance of what you talked about earlier, which is thinking about the responsibility of the component, right? Because when we can, make the component responsible for data display, data collection, and asking something to be done, then we can help, provide this opportunity that people can work in that domain, and then people can focus on the other domain, which is the state management and this logic, and you have this opportunity for teams to now start leading into, hey, I know this well, or I'm learning this well, I can dive into this side, or I can stay in this side here until I,
Oh, absolutely. Justin, I think there's a lot of potential that we don't take much advantage of in just the idea that this image is presenting, which you could have someone who's really good. If you have someone who's really good at writing Angular templates, like they could focus on this part, and someone who's really good at RxJS. I don't think those are necessarily the same people. So it would be nice to be able to allow people to specialize a little bit more in that. Like we talk about the full stack developers, there's no such thing. Like maybe there's no such thing as a real all the way front end developers. There's a lot of stuff right now in front end development that you need to get in order to be just like, I don't know, like capable, like able to do stuff. Like I'm still figuring out everything going on with CSS and all that nonsense, but
this reminds me of a concept of our missing panelist, Alyssa, of what she likes to call herself as a front end of the front end developer.
Yeah.
And that she's focused a lot on the HTML and the CSS with less about the driving force. Like you said, the view model, the components, the logic behind it is a separate entity or a separate concept to being able to render and position and style things.
Yeah, 100%. There's just a lot of stuff, and like for a lot of that, like the semantics of HTML, that's not a trivial thing.
Right.
So
accessibility, all that stuff. Yeah.
It's not trivial, and it's also like not optional. So it's like it's a double-edged sword, and you got to be able to do a lot of that stuff. So
right.
Yeah. Oh, Addie's here. What's up, man? Hey, Addie. Sorry, I interrupted you, Justin.
No, that's all right. Wasn't anything big.
Yeah, let me see what Addie wrote here.
I apologize. I was quiet. I was reading through the examples, taking a look at what was there.
Oh, cool. Yeah, let me know if you got anything you want to throw on screen and just talk through too, Mike. Because I got like maybe 1 or 2 points more, and then we can kind of open it up. Oh, we're coming to the end of our time, anyways. So
yeah, we got about 15 minutes. Yeah.
So,
being that there's a lot of people, especially in the Angular community, who's not familiar with the observer pattern, not observables, but observers, that example might be more understandable if those were subjects.
Yeah.
Within that example.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about subjects is that they are both observables and observers at the same time. So that's like a really cool thing. But Yeah, if you look at my examples, you're talking about where like I create an observable, calling like new observable and then like just register the observer on the component.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's like it should look very familiar. Hopefully anyone who's worked with subjects will be able to see that. But that's done on purpose to make sure it's not hot, just because it's easier to from the API.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah, I just because then you could easily just do the as observable on a subject. I think that might help a little bit with making it a little bit more approachable.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, that's a good point. Taken into consideration.
Or what you could do is you have the push and the pop. Do one with each.
Yeah.
This way you're showing both use cases there.
Yeah, that would be cool. Maybe I'll fork. Are you looking at the stack blitz for that one?
I am. I was looking at both the vanilla and the Angular.
Cool. Yeah. Let me throw it up here. So let's just talk about the thing that Mike mentioned. So this is how I make observables in these examples here. Let me blow this way up. Can I get rid of that? Yay. So this is how I'm making observables for like push and pop. And this is like a simple list view. So the way I do it is I create a new observable just by calling the constructor. And the way that works is like you have your observer come in, and what I'm doing is registering that observer, so it's now a property of the class. So normally, well, I think a lot of times people use like a subject in this case. So they just, instead of having the push observer, they just have like a push subject. So they'd say push subject equals new subject of string. This is kind of doing the same thing. It's just not hot necessarily. That's all that's happening here. But yeah, then whenever we call push, we're like calling next on that observer instead of the subject. And so, and like I said, subject is both an observable, so you can like subscribe to it or compose on it using pipe and passing in operators. But you can also just call next, error, and complete, I think, on a subject. And you can actually do those three methods are like what composes like the observer interface here. Yeah, so you can see there. So yeah, it's just like this is just one side of the coin as opposed to both. So I don't know, maybe you're right, Brocky. Maybe it's just easier to have the one, so you don't have to do the shenanigans in here. But
I'm more worried about, like I said, the approachability and the ease of people digesting this. And I know, especially with Angular, that a lot more people are familiar with the concept of a subject to make things reactive versus observers.
Yeah, good point. I did want to jump into Addie's question because it leads me nicely into where I go next in the article. So check it on dev.to. We're not going to be able to get through all of it today, but one of the powerful things I think about RxJS, and I think I am in the minority here. I love the idea. Well, this is kind of going through all the TypeScript stuff up here. That's the model going through the tic-tac-toe stuff. But here we started getting to test cases. And if y'all can see the image here, this is essentially what is commonly referred to as a marble test. I like to think of it more as timeline testing, but I think there's a lot of power in this. I think they get a bad rap. And I think, so this is kind of like a hot take I've given before, and Brock, I'd be really interested to hear your take. But if you feel like you don't need marble testing for your RxJS, you probably don't need RxJS. So let me just drop that one in there and let it marinate. But the idea here is we've now set our interface, so we know kind of how this looks. So if we had some developer who's really good at HTML, they can go off and do this right now. It's dropped me off in a weird place. That's good enough. I don't know, but yeah. And so right now, if we so RxJS is tricky, and it's hard to debug, and we want to make sure though that we have confidence in what we wrote, and we know there's a lot of danger around it. So I think the best tool for addressing those concerns and addressing those cons is getting proper testing in. I think the idea of marble or diagram or timeline testing is a really powerful way of doing this. So in the article I have here, I spell out all the different scenarios that we test to check that this is a tic-tac-toe example, but we're checking that given the different use cases, and we're just looking at the view model here. So we're just checking the RxJS code, but we're asserting okay, everything is working as we intended to, and this is with some async stuff incorporated into it because this example is a player playing against a computer. So the computer is going to wait a couple seconds to give its response to kind of like simulate a human playing against a human. So that's kind of like the examples we go through. So for each one I kind of enumerate through all the different test cases that we go through. And there's the code for this as well. So you can sort of see like this is what the timeline or the marble diagram stuff ends up looking like. It's unfortunate, like it's intimidating, and I 100% get that. It's like not a super ergonomic set of test suites to write, but I think there's stuff we can do there, and that's like one of the things I have on the timeline for this project, or on the future for this project, and that is to be able to write or to create some really good app that would be able to like visually create your timelines to say, okay, this is how this view model should go. So this is all based again on that one interface. That's the crux of this whole package. But given that interface, we can say, okay, given these incoming streams, what is the expected outcoming stream? And if I can get that right, where we have a really good app that will be able to say, hey, here's what for this observable, or for this set of input observables and what they actually happen to do, this is what we should expect to see as an output observable. If we can do that, and if we can from that generate like some really good test code, so generate what we're looking at right now, which is kind of the more abrasive marble testing, I think that could have some really good benefits to it. So that will be something I'm hoping to have by the end of this year, but that's like a bigger thing. And this is a side project, so you know how that goes.
Would that basically marble testing structure, would that be tied directly to your library, or could that conceptually be separate of just being able to interpret and help visualize marbles that way?
I would love for it to be generic enough that it could do everything. The reason, so the reason why I'd like to, at least at the start, be able to tie it to the to my package is because the interface there will allow me, like if someone can paste in, for example, what their interfaces look like, I could parse that like the AST there to be able to create forms for exactly what people like would need to pass in for each different test case, right? So that would be the goal initially, is someone could just paste their code in, and then we would be able to provide the creation tool, like just right out of the box. Being able to do it with any kind of observable or any kind of set of observables and throw them in and go forward, that would be a great thing to have. And I think at the core, it would be the same tool. It's just figuring out how to, like the ergonomics of how to specify, hey, this is what this observable looks like. And by the way, there's also a function here that could change some functionality or something like that. That's where it would come in. That would be a little bit harder, but yeah.
Going back to your take on that marbles don't make sense, or RxJS doesn't make sense if you don't want to do marbles. There's pros and cons to marbles. The pros are that it provides a not visible, well, both, that of your observable of what's happening over time with the asynchronous nature of most observables. But my issue comes in that you are then increasing the learning curve.
Yeah.
You're steepening it. It's higher that you have to climb to get from imperative programming to reactive programming to marbles to understanding there, and you're piling on the list of things that need to be learned and understood in order to get into that code base. And I know you brought that up earlier, or I think it may have been in chat as well, that the learning curve of learning RxJS is steep and difficult as it is, that we're piling onto that, where developers are able to reason about imperative code in their tests a little bit easier.
Right. So the one thing I think I would respond to that, like I 100% agree, Mike. There's like a lot. There's like a lot going on.
Here comes the but.
Here comes the but. The but always comes at the end. But the in addition to the high learning curve is also the many dangers, and so there's a lot of especially if you're paying for network costs on a production thing, you end up making 3 more times the network calls that you really need to make because you didn't understand something about RxJS. Like the marble diagrams will protect you from that. Whereas I think most of the other tests I've seen written for RxJS that that don't use marbles, they wouldn't catch those kinds of things. That you're accidentally, I'm actually omitting 3 times because I used combined latest, and each one of those 3 things is omitting now. And so each one of those made 3 different network requests. And now I'm paying 3 times as much for like my networking costs, for example. Like that's one piece of it. So if you don't understand it enough to be able to use the marble diagrams, it's like I'd be nervous about putting that code out into production. Does that make sense? Like if you can't cross some bar, it's like maybe leave it alone. Yeah. So I think marble tests, being able to grasp marble tests, and also like if you can do marble tests, I feel like that also really helps developers really grok what's actually going on. Like if they can actually write a marble test and really understand what's happening, then I think that's when, and for me, that's when like things started opening up. I had already hit like a couple false summits of what's going on with RxJS. And then I got into marbles and I was like, oh, okay. I get it.
But as Justin and I learned in one of our streams, that you have other concepts with marbles, like the bag of marbles, which you're probably like, the what? Because we came up with what as we were talking about it. But the fact that if you use of to initialize your streams, that it puts both the value and the complete on the same frame. So you have to be able to group things in a frame within a marble, which is a bag of marbles.
Yep. That's like with the parentheses, right? You put them both together like
parentheses,
that.
Yeah.
And then
we
you got
the parentheses the bag of marbles.
Yeah. So I was helping. Well, I didn't do that much, but I did a little bit on the RxJS project for helping them with their tests. And that was so rough because they really want their like the things to be aligned. So like you see like the strings here, like this is the same number of frames as this one up here, but they wanted it to like be on the same, like be horizontally aligned on that. It's like, it was such a pain to do. You got Prettier coming in and like trying to change things for you all the time.
I think that's the challenge, like, is that the ergonomics of writing the marble test get challenging. And if we could solve that and make that simpler, I think, the value there raises the bar, because the marble, I mean, we use marble diagrams to help describe what's happening in a stream, what's happening with operators. And I think it does an excellent job at visualizing that concept, right? And driving it home for a lot of people of what's actually happening with the stream. And so if you can write your test to describe, this is what I want that to look like over time, it's
Yeah.
valuable, but I think it's so hard when you get in there, like Mike was talking about as we dove in there on the fly too. There's so many potentials for like false positives in your test and things, and it just doesn't. It's not. It felt difficult to see clearly what is going on and what am I doing to achieve what I want to achieve, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if that could get worked out, I think then I think we get to, and I feel like that's a lot of the pain that people feel when they like, I'm opting out of Marvel testing. This is too crazy.
Yeah. I 100% agree. And I think there's a lot of value that gets lost because of that. So that's why the goal for creating these tests would be to, make that more accessible and make that fun. Like, ideally it should be like, well, a fifth grader could do this kind of thing. And it should make sense to a fifth grader, I would hope. So yeah, if we can get that licked, I think that'll be huge. And that leads into like my master plan for this, which is probably a little bit tinfoil hatty, but if I can create that tool and be able to give it to people to use, and if I can collect the data on how that's working and kind of see based on their implementations, how are they making these things pass? Like that's a red-green indicator. So that seems like a really good thing to train an AI model on. So if I can do something where just given someone has used my tool to make their tests, and I'm able to grab some implementation data from them as well, we can maybe train an AI to be able to write all of our view model code for us. And then it's just HTML from there. I'll let Copilot figure that part out. Right.
Nice. Nice.
So that's that. So the other part of my OSS project is probably not that relevant for this podcast, but there's a derxjs React package as well, and that's just there to make it a lot easier to given like a presentational component, just to be able to, it'll actually it uses like higher order functions to take that component as a function, combine it with the view model, and then you just go from there. So you just like pass in, you literally import the view model package, and you say, here's the presentational component, and that's it. That's your component. So that's pretty cool. I had a lot of fun with that project. So if you're interested in React, I recommend checking out those examples. So I would talk to, I'm looking at the comments here too. Nicholas Jameson is awesome and does a lot of awesome work with RxJS. I had talked to him when he was working on the RxJS Spy tool, but I had tried to use it, and this was years ago, but I was having a hard time with it. And so I've given up on trying to debug it, and that's why I'm going through the Marble tests as being like the bastion of hope for here. But if there's a really good tool, I'd be awesome. I'd be psyched to check it out. So if you have him on, I'll be checking it out.
That'd be cool. Well, I know we're at the top of the hour.
Yeah.
We didn't really get into the reducer part. Maybe we need to have a part 2 of this.
Yeah, if you want, let me know. We can probably figure it out.
Definitely, that'd be cool. I do have a question on this. Like, as we talked through this and looked at this, I started thinking, like, I wonder if it would benefit from not having the view model name on it.
Yeah,
because I can
I've
start
been thinking
seeing
that a lot.
Like I could use this to say, look, I'm going to combine some observable streams, and I need to get some data prepped that comes out of it, but I'm not going to use it for a view model, right? Like, let's say I have to call 3 endpoints, and I want to aggregate that data together and then do something with a subset of that data, but it's not for the view. It could totally leverage this same pattern for that.
Yeah. And I think there's some other unfortunate things when I first named this. I didn't foresee kind of like bringing in NVC patterns, which I don't think is that relevant to what I'm doing here. So yeah, I think you're right. If you come up with a good name, Justin, let me know. I'll change it because I think you're 100% correct. Especially because like you could use the same thing like we were talking about at the beginning for like your global state as well. That really doesn't make sense with view model. So.
Right. And I think it's like what I see it when I say, why would I use this, right? Or what's it for, right? Especially if I already have something existing that I'm working on, what's it for? because I immediately kind of think, well, if I have a couple observables, I could use some operators, and I can build even custom operators and kind of achieve the mapping down, a couple in and then one thing out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how is this different? But to me, I see it as like, well, it gives me a pattern to encapsulate more than just operator. And I think you mentioned this earlier. You have some static data or some properties, some other functions, right? It gives you this home of saying, here's the pattern of how we're going to expect that API contract for other higher code to use to feed two in, get one out, and then somewhere else we can implement the guts of it. And it could be just operators. It could be way more than operators, but it allows us to have a common pattern applied to how we attack that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like to give credit where it's due, this is all on RxJS. I'm just trying to put something around it to make it nicer, because like what this is, like if all it is observables coming in, like that's essentially an operator. An operator is how you take one observable and create a new one from it. And like that's literally like if you have a function that takes an observable and returns an observable, you can throw that in a pipe. That's what it is. And yeah, that's the power of what they built there. And I think this is just a really good way of helping you understand, okay, let's like I have the interface. I know I have an observable of this kind of data. After I have that, I can go off and do whatever I need to do and black box that. And then once I'm ready for it, let's make the black box. So just separating out those things out so we can build software like we're building, a Lego castle instead of we're knitting a sweater. So yeah.
And it's abstracting that away, right? Like giving you a solution right away to say, I can build my component, I can throw one of these in there, and then I don't have to worry about all the inner workings. And it helps because then the more and more you add to that component, the deeper it gets to challenge to get yourself out of it, right?
Yeah.
So this gets you right off the bat going, here, it's like a placeholder, boom, go. This is going to be done somewhere else.
Oh yeah. Like one of the things I love about this too, Justin, is like once you have this, doesn't matter like how things are working. Like if you just wanted to check out, how's my HTML looking? Like how's my template looking? Is it doing stuff right? Or I really want to isolate this loading phase, but I only see it for 2 seconds. All you got to do, man, is you just got to comment out whatever's inside of your view model function and just put and then exactly the state you want it to isolate. And beautiful. Right. Beautiful that way.
Yep.
So yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. All right. Well, this is super exciting. We definitely should try and see if you're available to do a follow-up on the reducer package, and we can dive deeper into that because that'd be really cool.
That would be awesome.
For sure. So do we have any picks? Anybody want to shout out anything before we wrap? Mike's got something. We'll start with Mike.
I got two. One, I was watching a Twitch stream earlier, and they were reviewing some JavaScript packages from NPM, and one of them is something called ZX from Google, which I was like, what the heck is that? It will allow you to essentially run command line utilities from JavaScript and be able to handle the output in JavaScript and therefore make other calls, and basically allows you to do scripting in JavaScript natively in the console. So very cool.
Nice.
I plan on looking at that. I actually have a task on my to-do list for work that involves making calls out to some command line tools and then being able to do things with the output. So I'm very much looking forward to being able to integrate that into that solution. And
I saved that a while back. When I saw that, I saved that. I haven't looked at it. I'm not increasing my 1% each day. I need to add that to my list so I can.
I will put that in the link in the private chat for you to share if you want to share that. But it's definitely very cool. And the other thing I got into, especially a little bit last night, was OBS. Now using OBS as my webcam, taking my webcam into OBS Studio, which is free, and outputting that as my webcam. And I was able to add a few like overlays and what have you. So,
dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was having fun. I was playing too. So
nice,
man.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. I have a pick, and I have a Corsair keyboard, right, that I can control the lights on. And so over the break, I had my daughter help me out dial in my light schemes because she's already done it on hers. And I set a couple up for when I'm working with different colors for shortcut combo keys, right? And so for some common stuff that I do that I seem to kind of keep forgetting, like what's the combo to get to that, right? And I set them up with these colors. And so now when I just look down at my keyboard and I see the color combos, I'm like, oh, that's the shortcut combo to do this or do that. It's pretty cool. You're on mute, Mike.
Mike.
For example, is like copy, like do you see Control and C or Command and C?
Yeah, I mean, I do when I'm switching between my Windows and Mac machine. You know, I need to do. No, I don't do that. But
but I'm just talking about, like, for example.
But yeah. So like in WebStorm, to open up the terminal, it's like, well, I'm going to look at my keyboard. It's Alt F12, right? And so I've got the Alt and F12 colored in like a hot pink sort of thing, and then that I use that combo. I just look down my keyboard. That's how I open the terminal.
I like that.
It's really helpful. It was really helpful when, and Zach and I were talking about this before we started the show. It's really helpful when you take a time off like a week and you have to come back and get into the cycle. And I haven't done that muscle memory of those to just look down at my keyboard and have the answers. So anyways, it's how I use the lighting. It's pretty cool.
I'm working off of a dual machine setup right now. I have a client machine and my machine. My machine's Windows. The client machine is Mac. And my hands are stupid right now. There's times when I can't copy and paste. I can't do a lot of things. And then that's assuming that I remember that my fingers are on the correct keyboard, because I got one on each screen. And yeah.
There's a lot of shortcuts like duplicate line or like move line up or down. I don't know. Like I couldn't tell you what they are, but my fingers know. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
I've also started to use my Stream Deck more for things like that.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
That's neat.
Nice.
For like coding stuff?
Yeah, I have some.
That's nuts. Oh, I guess it's gone.
He apparently has a button to remove himself.
Bye.
Yeah. He hit the wrong button. All right.
Yeah, let me do a pick real quick here, Justin.
Yeah.
This is one of mine. I got, let's see. This is it's like a gallon jug of water. It is perfect for the gym because it's got these doohickeys on it. And I always feel like a nerd because I got like my keys, I got my wallet, I got my phone, I got all this stuff. Every time I got to go from like one bench to another, from one machine to another, I'm bringing all these things. Like trying to find a way to put it, and this gives me one thing to carry. So that's one of my picks. The other one, I just heard about this earlier today, is Tauri, Tauri. So this is a Electron replacement that doesn't use Electron, uses Rust. Looks really cool. And yeah, I'm excited.
I am super excited that you mentioned that. I'm actually was playing with some stuff the other day on that, and I was thinking about that same thought of, you know, when are we going to have like an Electron replacement? Something, you know, that's cool.
Yeah,
that was actually the stream I was watching where I learned about ZX.
Mm-hmm.
They also mentioned Taria. I don't know how to pronounce it, but the same library.
Yeah.
So definitely very cool.
Very cool.
Sorry, awesome. I left my browser tab crashed.
We figured you were touching one of your stream buttons and you were piecing out.
Like I'm going. Awesome. All right. Well, hey, Zach, as always, thanks a ton for coming on, sharing your time, sharing this information with us. We really, really appreciate it. And we always look forward to having you on again.
Yeah. Thanks, y'all. It's always great to be here. Y'all do a great job. So appreciate y'all.
Awesome. All right. That's a wrap. Take it easy, everyone. Catch you next time. Later.